In Kensington, Sydney, a house sold for about 4.7 million Australian dollars, roughly 3.5 million in US money. No toilet, no kitchen, no power. And yet the bidding still went crazy. That is what paradise looks like when the price tag stops caring whether a place is livable. Australia sells the postcard hard. Beaches, blue sky, clean cities, the vibe of a country that somehow escaped the American grind. Then you try to live there on a normal paycheck and the postcard starts charging rent you cannot pay. Here is the money story. Not a bankruptcy ending, not a fake collapse, something quieter and more expensive. A system that turned houses into the preferred stock market, then asked ordinary people to compete with that market for a place to sleep. Start with the feeling on the ground. Year after year, cost of living has ranked as a top concern in Australian polling from shops like Ipsos, Essential, and JWS. That is not a vibe check. That is people saying the grocery bill, the energy bill, and the roof overhead are the fight. Look at wages through an American lens. After inflation, real wages have been pushed back towards something like 2011 purchasing power. You work, you get paid, the money does not stretch like it used to. Meanwhile, housing kept climbing as if wages were a rumor. Sydney often sits near the top of Demographia unaffordability tables, around 14 times income, frequently second only to Hong Kong. Think about that, one of the richest-looking cities on Earth, priced like a luxury asset class. Analysts have floated income figures in the ballpark of $260,000 to $300,000 a year just to look comfortable buying a median Sydney home. Melbourne still demands something like $170,000. Median household income? Roughly around $100,000. The gap is the story. The median household is not living in the price chart. The price chart is living above them. It's not only Sydney. After 2020, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth saw large price rises while wage growth lagged. The Sunshine Cities got expensive too. The map widened, the trap widened with it. Home ownership for 25 to 34s fell from about 61% in 1981 to about 43% in 2021. That's a generation watching the ladder pull up while the brochure still says opportunity. Renters got hit next. Early 2024 domain figures put Sydney house rents around $750 a week, Brisbane around $650. Nationally, rents jumped roughly 40% plus since late 2020. If you're not buying, you're still financing someone else's asset. Now, the supply side, because demand alone is only half the autopsy. Net overseas migration hit a record around 518,000 in 2022-23. Arrivals ran hotter than completions. Dwelling completions around 172,000 sat among the lowest in a decade. More people, fewer finished homes. Do the math with your wallet. Approvals can crawl. In New South Wales, some councils have stretched into months, even past 200 days. Density sits lower than cities like London, Munich, or Amsterdam. Australia has space on the map and scarcity in the market. That contradiction is not an accident of geography. It's an outcome of rules, timelines, and incentives. And incentives are the heart of this. Charlie Munger put it cleanly. Show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome. Australia's tax code did not just tolerate housing investment. It made housing feel like the smartest trade in town. Here is the clarity beat. Negative gearing in plain American English means if your rental costs more to hold than it brings in rent, you can use that loss to lower taxable income elsewhere. Pair that with a 50% capital gains tax discount on assets held more than a year, in place since 1999, and the game tilts. Lose a little on cash flow, win bigger on the upside when prices rise. Self-managed super funds, think retirement money, can also lean into property. For Americans, picture a system where the house is not only shelter, it's the preferred growth vehicle, with tax rules that quietly cheer for leverage and long holds. That's how a house becomes a stock without ticker tape. People don't need a brokerage app. They need a deposit, a loan, and a belief that tomorrow's buyer will pay more. When enough people believe that, prices stop tracking wages and start tracking speculation. This is not a one-party rant. Housing rose across multiple governments. Different logos, same incentive gravity. Once the tax code rewards property like a market, politics fights the symptoms while the mechanism keeps humming. Zoom out to the economy underneath. Through 2023, Australia faced a kind of per-person squeeze. Gross domestic product per capita weakened, down on the order of about 1%, language that tracks with Australian Bureau of Statistics and Reserve Bank of Australia discussions around a per capita recession feel, even when the headline economy looked okay. More people can lift total output while living standards per person stall. That's how a country can look rich on TV and feel poorer at the kitchen table. Research and development sits around 1.7% of GDP against an OECD average near 2.7%. Less innovation intensity, more capital chasing bricks. When money prefers houses over labs, you get gorgeous suburbs and thinner growth engines. Put the pieces together. Record migration into a country under building, slow approvals, lower density than peer cities, tax settings that make leveraged property feel safer than building the next company, wages lagging, rents ripping, young ownership collapsing, Sydney priced like a trophy, and even a shell of a house once clearing multi-million-dollar auction night because the land under the wreck was the real ticker. That Kensington sale was the purest signal. Buyers weren't paying for comfort. They were paying for the plot, the postcode, and the upside. When land without a working bathroom can clear about $3.5 million, shelter has left the chat. Asset mode has taken over. So what does living there feel like for regular people? It feels like paradise at the airport. It feels like arithmetic in the suburbs. It feels like choosing between a mortgage that owns you, rent that eats your raise, or leaving the city that looks perfect in photos. Australia didn't become expensive by accident. It became expensive because the rules made homes the preferred stock market, then invited everyone to compete for shares of dirt. The beaches are real. The sunshine is real. The money story is realer. If this hit you, sit with that tension. Paradise is a tourism brand. Housing is a balance sheet. And when a tax code turns the second thing into the national pastime, the first thing starts charging admission. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.